Hello. Thank you so much for joining us for Shining Light on Shadows, a candid conversation about mental health. Our guest today is Jim Yu. He's joining us for episode 26. We're going to be focusing on borderline personality disorder, support for families, and we'll be talking about support for families in general when people are dealing with mental health issues. My name is Neil Parekh. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and my website. We're actually live on both my Facebook page and Dawn's Facebook page. Dawn is my co-host. Dawn, great to see you.
Good to see you too, Neil.
We're also live on both of our Instagram channels. So catch us wherever you can. And please do all the things you do on social media. Like, comment, share, retweet, tag your friends, let them know about this show. We have been doing the show for about 13 months now. My daughter Emily actually did the math when I told her we were doing episode 26 today. She was like, wait, that's 13 months? You've been doing that for that long? And yeah, we launched this last February. So it's been great. And our goal, of course, is to reduce the stigma associated with mental health. And I'm so glad that Jim is with us today. Last week, we had another colleague, Pradnya Haldapur, was our guest, and we focused on mental health issues at work in particular. And we'll talk about that a little bit today because Jim and I worked at United Way Worldwide for 5 years together. It gives me, I have all these thoughts now because I never said word one about mental health when I was there. I didn't really start talking about it publicly until last year when we started the show. And, I have a colleague. I had a colleague there who was dealing with mental health issues in his family, and I was dealing with my own. And we could have been more of a support for each other if I had been more comfortable talking about it. So that's not lost on me, of course. Dawn, I say this several times, but your candor on social media has always been an inspiration for me and has always really something I've looked up to in terms of a model for being able to talk about mental health. I appreciate that.
Thank you for that. It's as you know, I tend to be an open book on Facebook, and I don't really have a filter when it comes to sharing how I feel, good, bad, or ugly. That's just sort of my mantra. It's like my open book diary for everyone to see.
I'm just curious, does it come easy for you, or do you really, not so much agonize, but do you think about it before you post, or is it just like, I'm feeling this, I'm going to share it?
I'm feeling this, I'm going to share it. Yeah, that's usually, it's kind of like with my blog posts. I just start typing, and whatever comes out on the page is typically what ends up being posted. Now, there are times when that is not the best methodology. I promise you, there have been many a times where I've gotten a little bit of backlash here and there for what I post. I try to be sensitive to other people, right? But if it's my personal situation, I feel like I'm pretty much an open book.
Sure. I do want to let folks know, and we haven't been always been great about trigger warnings on the show, particularly when we talk about sexual assault, because that's something Dawn and I are both somewhat more comfortable now talking about it. But I do want to make sure that folks know that we will be talking about someone attempting suicide on the show. And if that is something that is too close to home for folks, certainly encourage you to take the time you need. If you need to pause and come back to the show later, feel free to do that. But just wanted to give people that heads up. We also will be talking about sexual assault and related issues later in the show. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and our next show is actually going to be focused on the book that Dawn wrote, The Blue Flower Curtain. Specifically, we'll be discussing it for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So we will be talking about that in a little bit. I want to take a moment to welcome some of the folks that are watching before we introduce our guest. Paula Kiger is watching from Valdosta, Georgia. Paula, thank you so much. She's a colleague of mine at Digimentors. They provide pro bono support for the show, for producing the show. And I know that Paula is usually in Tallahassee. She's visiting her daughter. Paula, I hope everything is going well. We look forward to hearing about your trip as soon as you can share. Jonathan is watching from the East Village. Jonathan, thank you so much for being a loyal watcher. Karen Wood is watching on YouTube, but she says she can't hear us. So we'll do just a quick check. Other people who are watching, if you're having any issues with volume, please let us know in the comments. I'm not seeing any other comments to that effect, so I will, hopefully it's just an issue on your end, Karen. But thank you for joining us. You could also try going to another platform. If you have the link to our website, to my website, you'll see links to Facebook and LinkedIn as well. The other Jim. So we have Jim and other Jim watching. Jim is which way, Dawn? He is
that way.
That way.
Yep.
Jim is Dawn's husband and an all-around great guy. He's from Milwaukee, so I'll forgive him for being a Brewers fan. But
Stop it.
just in case folks don't know, I'm a Yankees fan. I'm from New York. So it's just important information for folks in case they don't know. If they didn't catch the news today, we'll just make sure they're aware of what's going on
in
the world outside of mental health.
You're such a jerk.
Dr. Tachi is watching from Florida. Thank you, Dr. Tachi. Always great to see you. Yes, the Yankees beat the Brewers 4-2. Hey, I have to have a little fun too. I told Dawn I wasn't going to pull that during the show because I didn't think that it worked with our vibe, but
he did it anyway.
Once I saw Jim, I had to do it. But Eileen, Dr. Tachi is here, so thank you. I want to give a big shout out to Eileen Taylor watching from Philadelphia. Eileen joined us last week for the first time. She is the mother of Steve Taylor. And Eileen, I wanted to let you know, and I talked to Dawn about this before the show. I wanted to share that it was our last show was 2 weeks ago, of course. And Steve Taylor passed away just a little bit before that. I think it was a week before. And we're still thinking of him, and just want you to know that he's still very close to our hearts. And I thank you for joining us and watching today's show. It's still hard. It's still hard. And I have a picture of Steve that I want to bring up in just a moment, just to share with folks that I shared last week. As folks may not have heard, so we did the tribute 2 weeks ago, but we confirmed later and shared Steve died of a heart attack at home. And this was the picture that I had shared the last time I saw him in person in New York, about 2 years ago, I think it is now. So anyway, thank you, Eileen, for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for all of your support over the last 2 weeks. We have Naomi Service watching from Rhode Island. Important topics. Thank you, Naomi. Absolutely. And then Kate is watching. So Jim was this way. Kate's that way. Kate is Dawn's landlady, but also a very good friend. And I've had a chance to meet her and spend time with her as well. So, Kate, thank you so much for your support. I do want to say that I have not seen anyone support someone else on Facebook as much as Kate does for Dawn.
That is the truth.
Every post that Dawn puts out about her book, Kate shares it and encourages people to buy the book or to attend an event. Kate, you are incredible, and I just want to give you some kudos for that. Appreciate it. Ross Hadley is watching from on LinkedIn, and I don't know. Do you recognize Ross? The Brewers were robbed, apparently, is what he says.
It's true.
I don't know if Ross, if you're, I don't recognize you from before, so glad if this is your first time watching. Thank you for joining us. You might be a friend of Jim's, although I do believe Jim's a Yankee fan from my days at United Way Worldwide. I want to check that when he comes on screen. Jim says boo. I'm guessing that's he's not trying to scare anyone. He's just upset about the Brewers, but I'm sure that he'll recover eventually. With that, we will get on to more pressing concerns. Our guest, of course, is Jim Yu. We're focusing on borderline personality disorder. That's what he has written a blog post about, and that his daughter had struggled with. And he also is a chair of the National Education Alliance for borderline personality disorder. So he has a lot to share about the topic and the support offered for families. The blog post he wrote, after our daughter's second suicide attempt, we felt lost and alone. Family members are a hidden segment that do not receive a lot of attention or support, and they are in pain and suffering too. Research shows that family members are essential in supporting their loved one with BPD. With that, I'd like to bring on our guest, Jim Yu. Jim?
Hi, folks.
Thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
Yes, thank you, Neil and Dawn. It's a pleasure. It's, for me, something I'm passionate about and committed to this topic and the work. And we've received a lot of benefit in my family. After our daughter's second suicide attempt, it was such a struggle. We didn't know what we were dealing with. And when she was at a local, admitted to the local psychiatric ward at the hospital here, she finally got an accurate diagnosis. And as a result, she was able to do her own research, find the right kind of therapy. And when she started that therapy, my wife and I, out of the blue, we received an email inviting us to a meeting. And what we thought was a meeting turned out to be the first of 12 weeks of classes. And we learned so much from that experience. The skills that we learned, the camaraderie, if you will, the support from a group of people who knew what we were going through, experienced the same kinds of things. And I was invited to become an instructor, a leader. And I jumped at that chance because, the adage I kind of follow is, if you want to learn something, try to teach it. And so I did that. I've now taught and co-led 7 classes, and we've gotten so much out of it that I wanted to give back. I started to volunteer. I joined some committees. I applied for and was accepted onto the board for NEABPD, and I'm now the chair of the board because there's so many people who are in similar circumstances to our family, my wife and I, and we wanted to help as many people as we could.
That's great, Jim. Thank you for that. I think that's a incredible arc in terms of going to the classes to get that support, and then deciding to lean into it and start teaching the classes and getting to this stage. What are some of the what are some of the basic kind of lessons or approaches that people share that you've shared as a teacher in those classes for parents? I mean, borderline personality disorder is, first, let's take a minute just to explain kind of what that is for folks, just so they have a little bit of a understanding. And we'll put up a graphic that we have uh, from NEABPD. Borderline personality disorder can turn your life upside down. BPD is widely misunderstood. It's a widely misunderstood psychiatric disorder. Over 14 million Americans suffer from BPD. It is more common than schizophrenia and bipolar disorder combined. The suicide rate in BPD far exceeds that of the general population, and it's the third leading cause of death among young women between 15 to 24. What more can you tell us about the disorder itself?
When you look at all of the traits, when you combine that, it really boils down to such great difficulty in maintaining relationships. When you look at all of the traits that are associated with BPD and its effect, and to be diagnosed, there are 9 traits. And if you are diagnosed officially with 5 of them, you are officially a BPD person, someone with BPD. But that doesn't mean that if you don't get an official diagnosis, you couldn't get help. But the challenge in all of those with those traits is that it just affects your relationships, your ability to maintain relationships. It's so difficult. The outbursts or the isolation and the self-harm, it just becomes such a burden. So people are in such pain and suffering, and from this mental health illness and now here's the thing when we talk about that segment that you opened with, is that so for each person, they have someone in their life who probably, likely, at least one person who loves and supports them. That individual likely is also in a great deal of pain and suffering themselves. And so that the great opportunity, I call it an opportunity. The opportunity is to help those people who have someone in their life with BPD to help ease their pain and suffering. And through the programs that NEABPD offers, like Family Connections or managing suicidality and trauma response, that's MSTR. Those kind of programs, first of all, you get psychoeducation. You learn about the illness. You receive and you can begin practicing skills that can help to reduce your own pain and suffering. We're not talking about reducing and affecting your person with BPD. That's something that they have to find their own path. But for a family member to get that, the skills is really vitally important. And then the last component of it is the support, to be able to know that you're not alone, that you can talk to and receive kind of the support from others who understand what you're going through. Oftentimes, and we hear this all the time in our programs, we hear it, I can't talk to my colleagues about this. I can't talk to my relatives about this. There's such stigma, there's such judgment associated with a mental illness that, and the folks who are experiencing this as family members, there's like, oh, well, you should just pull up your bootstraps. You should be sterner. You should do all these things to your person. And meanwhile, they're in such pain and suffering that the thing is that folks will say with BPD to their family members is that, oh, you just don't get me. You don't understand me, or you're trying to fix me kind of stuff. And we all know when someone's trying to fix us, how we react to those kinds of things, right? It's just, but if you feel like someone's really trying to understand you, really trying to get what you're going through and to validate you, these are all parts of the skills that we learn through our programs, is to build a relationship, to kind of gain the trust that your person feels that you're really starting to listen and you're really starting to understand, and that you're not judging them, because we all know how judging is so toxic for folks.
Dawn?
Yeah. So Jim, on our prep call, we kind of talked about parenting someone who has mental health diagnosis, and you talked about really listening to that individual and what that individual's needs are. Can you speak a little bit about that?
One of the keys is in listening is really understanding the emotions and the feelings that your person is going through, and to validate that what they're experiencing is important, and that we're not trying to change them, or we're not trying to fix them, those types of things. That true listening with an open heart, to be empathetic and to see that that's how you're feeling, and that must be really hard. That kind of rebuilds the bridge, if you will, and that you have with your person. And when they start to see that and they start to feel that from you, then you can start to have some real conversations that are really vital. But when you feel that someone's truly listening to you, the tension kind of goes away, right? When you're really, really what we call dysregulated and very emotional, it's kind of like you're so tense. But when you start to listen, when you know that the person, your person, is truly listening, suddenly the tension kind of goes out, right? Oh, they're not judging me. Oh, they're not saying I have to do this or that. They actually are hearing me, and they're trying to understand me. That's huge for people. I think each of you know you want to be heard. You want to be understood. I think that's the same for our person with BPD.
You mentioned the criteria, the diagnostic criteria, and we grabbed this from the NEABPD website. If you want more information, they're a great resource, and you can find them at neabpd.org. But we'll just review these real quickly. It's you talked about the focus on difficulty with interpersonal relationships. It's a fear of abandonment, unstable or changing relationships, unstable self-image, struggles with identity or sense of self, impulsive or self-damaging behaviors. Examples: spending, unsafe sex, substance abuse, etc., suicidal behavior, self-harm, self-injury, varied or random mood swings, constant feelings of worthlessness or sadness, problems with anger, including frequent loss of temper or physical fights, stress-related paranoia, or loss of contact with reality. And Jim, you said that if you have 5 of these, then you meet the criteria for BPD?
Yeah, the official diagnosis conducted by a clinician, a professional. What you will find, what folks will find, is there's combinations of these. And by the way, it's very rare that BPD is by itself. There's usually what we call a co-occurring mental health illness in addition to BPD, whether it's depression, anxiety, a number of other things that are co-occurring when someone experiences BPD. But the you may also see varying levels of intensity with each of these different criteria. But the combination, and for those who experience those, if you have someone in your life with BPD, you can recognize so many of these. When I saw, I had no idea as a parent of someone, we couldn't figure out what was going on, when this happened. And to finally get an accurate diagnosis, and you start to learn about these criteria, and many people do their own research, but for me, it was learning about this in the class, and suddenly it's like, oh shit, I actually recognize these. Oh, this happened. It's so heavy, and then as a parent, you kind of go through, oh my gosh, she was suffering so much, and then you start to question yourself: is what did I do to create or make the situation worse? And you start to beat yourself up, kind of stuff, as all the things that, oh, I woulda, shoulda, coulda done. But we talked about this before the show started, the idea of radical acceptance, and knowing that you were doing the best you could at the time with what you had. You could do better. We all could. And that's the opportunity with programs like Family Connections from NEABPD, is you kind of learn. But at the time, you were trying your best to do. And if you continue to beat yourself up about it, it's going to be even harder. But the beauty of getting to connect with people who know a little bit about what you're doing, that's such a revelation for people. Such a revelation. It's, wow, I'm not alone.
And this is the Family Connections information from the NEABPD website. They have the Family Connections, and then also Family Connections Managing Suicidality and Trauma Recovery.
Yeah.
I guess 2 sets of classes, and some great information on the NEABPD website. We have a couple of comments that have come in that I'd like to see if we can bring in. And first, Nicole is watching, and want to first of all thank you, Nicole, for watching. Nicole is a friend of Pradnya's, who was our guest last week, and she and I have connected. She works with the 988 Lifeline, so we will definitely be following up. She says that it seems that doctors are reticent to diagnose BPD or bipolar disorder, especially among teens or those under 18. This makes it very difficult for parents to get appropriate care. Any recommendations? I think the correct diagnosis is essential for everyone. Jim, any thoughts on that?
Nicole, that's just such a great question, and I'll give you my perspective as a parent and a volunteer, not as a professional. But that it is so frustrating, and you hear it from parents in the class, you hear it from folks who are involved with BPD. The challenge, particularly, you can't get an official diagnosis until your child is at a certain age. There is some work being done where, similar to Family Connections, there's some piloting a program of using the recognized, for example, like DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, having a test program, a pilot program to help folks who are younger. And that kind of availability of programming is being piloted. I think that professionals, and I understand that there's conversations and belief that the brain for a young person doesn't fully develop until they're in their mid-20s, and there's a reluctance by professionals to make this kind of diagnosis. But wouldn't it be great if folks just understand as someone at a certain age is starting to show some signals and some signs, and to be able to make that some type of help available to those folks. The recommendations are to continue to kind of talk with policymakers and the medical field to make the case that there are folks who need the help, and to wait on that when they can benefit from some of the therapy available. Seems really frustrating.
I want to say hi to a colleague who's watching. Rose Horowitz is watching from Connecticut. Thank you, Rose. And I just want to acknowledge Rose is Rose and Paula and a few others are colleagues of mine at Digimentors. Digimentors is the consulting firm that I work with. They offer pro bono support for me to produce this show. So I'm always grateful for the time that they give me, both to do the outreach, to produce the show, to co-host it, etc. So thank you to my colleagues at Digimentors. I do want to bring in another comment we have from Ross Hadley, who is watching. He says, my FP and I was school, I'm guessing that's favorite person, is also my spouse and caregiver in a crisis situation. I would have guessed Dawn, family practitioner myself, but the support for those who aren't parents but support patients seems lacking, and a very long queue to join a class. And I don't know whether Ross is referring specifically to the National Education Alliance for Borderline Personality Disorder or other classes, but I think in general, and we've talked about this before for other support groups, or even in finding therapists, that sometimes there just isn't enough, aren't enough spaces, enough providers, enough classes for people, and that there is sometimes a wait. Jim, what is that like for NEABPD? How broad, how much accessibility is there for the workshops you have?
It's a real challenge, Neil, and Ross, thank you for the comment. We're a small nonprofit with just a handful of staff that's primarily, and the classes are conducted and led by volunteers. And unfortunately, and it's very frustrating for all of us on the board and the organization, we have a pretty long wait list. Currently, it's around 1,500 people on the wait list, but we've had as many as over 3,000 people waiting to get into a class. We're just limited by the number of volunteer leaders and the resources that we have available. I would say that probably upwards of 70% or more of the folks who take our classes are parents. We also have folks who have their partner with BPD, or they are an adult child with a parent who has BPD, or a sibling. So there are circumstances when you talk about, Ross, a different scenario from being a parent to a spouse and a caregiver. We have those folks in class as well. And there have been times when we've actually had hosted classes for those kind of segments for romantic partners, spouses, partners, those types of things. So from time to time, we do have those kind of classes, but we're trying to raise more money, fundraise to get more resources, develop more options programmatically for folks. We have what I will refer to as a gold standard. We have the Family Connections program, which is 12 weeks, consecutive weeks, 2 hours per week, it's a big commitment, and it's not a commitment that a lot of, there are people who can't do that, and we understand that, and we're looking to develop new options for that, and we have some, and we're piloting some programs, but we want to help more people. Neil hasn't had a chance to share, but it was mentioned there are millions of people who are out there who are in pain and suffering who have BPD, and then again, each of those people have someone else in their life who are there that love and support them. So you have tons of people out there who are in pain and suffering, and our board and our organization is trying to figure out how to help those people in a way that is meaningful, because we know we have resources, we have programs that can help.
You talked about some of the statistics. BPD affects 1.6% of adults, 14 million Americans at some time in their life. 50% more people than Alzheimer's. And that was the stat that really got my attention, because there's so much more attention paid to Alzheimer's. Nearly as many as schizophrenia and bipolar combined. 20% of patients admitted to psychiatric hospitals, and that it affects 10% of people in outpatient mental health treatment, which is really, really something. I want to continue that conversation. Ross actually had a follow-up comment. Since there aren't label-indicated meds, go for CPTSD and anxiety, as they are insurance and provider friendly, and then find a therapist that supports DBT. Or a general practitioner would also general psychiatric management. So that's another approach. Nicole does have a comment about the classes themselves. She said she's had a friend take the class and tell me it was excellent. She highly recommends it. So certainly thank you for that, Nicole. And want to remind people, if they're interested in learning more about NEAPD, you can find their website, the National Education Alliance for Borderline Personality Disorder, NEABPD.org, NEABPD.org. Dawn, I want to turn to you. One of the things that we've talked about a little bit in terms of the role that parents play and the challenges. I mean, it's really we're focusing on borderline personality disorder, but a lot of this is around parenting a child with mental illness. And Jim talked about that idea of radical acceptance, of kind of being able to understand that you did the best you could with the information and skills you had. For folks who may have seen the show Adolescence on Netflix, the last episode is incredibly powerful. It's the two parents. I won't give away anything from the show, but the two parents are turning to each other and asking, could we have done something differently? Where did we go wrong? How did we, raise a child like this? And some of that certainly applies, but what we're also talking about is that some of these issues are not something that you're responsible for. Certainly, these are conditions that are maybe chemical imbalances that are kind of just come up in our children, but you still have to deal with it. You wrote a blog post, Dawn. You made reference to it earlier. Parenting a child with social anxiety disorder. And the quote that really struck home for me: I tried to force society on him because that is what I thought I was supposed to do. But the truth is, you have to allow people with mental health issues, all people, to decide what is best for them. I think that's powerful advice for anyone. Can you talk a little bit more about that, Dawn? And you're muted. You were coughing earlier, I know.
I was coughing, so I muted myself so that nobody had to hear me cough, and then I forgot to unmute myself. Apologize. So yeah, and I just want to be really, really clear and say that my son is a fantastic kid. So when I say like, oh, I did so many things wrong. I take ownership over looking at the world through what I thought parenting meant, and what what society sort of um forces our young people to think they're supposed to be involved in, right? So in my blog, I talk about my, putting my son in every sports activity that there was, right? Pee wee football, little league, basketball, racquetball, everything that I could think of. And my son like excelled at all of those things, but he would get to, you know, a point where they'd be like, oh, it's time to be on a team, it's time to compete, it's time to do this, and he would immediately quit whatever it was. And just kind of like Jim was saying, um like everybody was like, well, you can't let him quit, he's got to follow through, you have to force, he's got to have those resiliency skills. Just because he doesn't want to do something doesn't mean he shouldn't. And I learned really late in his like elementary, beginning middle school, that the world for him was not set up for his type of personality, that he had severe social anxiety, and that being forced into these situations for him was so painful. I mean, like painful. It would make him shake with anxiety, and and sweat, and just feel like completely terrified to be in those situations. And we just kept putting him in and putting him in and putting him in. um and then eventually, like, I learned to let him lead, and that was like such a humbling experience. And I stopped apologizing for my son not wanting to participate in things, or is always like, oh, he's just shy, or whatever I might have said, which quite frankly is not the case. He's not shy. He has social anxiety. Like, he can communicate, and he has great conversations with people one on one. Just those overwhelming situations of being, like in team sports or whatever, was just like too complicated for him. And it's really funny, because if you were to have a conversation with my son, you would learn very, very quickly that he loves plants and animals, things that talk. He loves to take care of them. He's a horticulturalist, and he's really good at those types of things. He can grow anything, and he's like a dog whisperer. Animals are drawn to him. So I think the takeaway in this scenario for me, and I told Jim ahead of the show that I really appreciated the opportunity to be able to open up about this, because it does feel very lonely as a parent, when you can't quite put your finger on what's going on with your kid, but you know that there's something that is just not sitting with that child right, that there's just something wrong, and they feel it's wrong, and they don't know. My son diagnosed himself with general anxiety and social anxiety disorder before he was ever diagnosed properly with those two things. He just like did all the research and said, this is what's happening to me. And then we found him a medical doctor that would diagnose him properly and put him on some medication that really helps him to kind of level out. So thank you, Jim, for opening that opportunity. Yeah.
I do want to say you first talked about your son on an episode we did last year, when Kate was a guest, Kate Easton. And what I thought was great in your blog post, you kind of brought us up to present day a little bit. You had talked a lot about the social anxiety that your son felt, and that moment when he was in middle school where he told you that the world just isn't made for people like me, which is still just very powerful. But tell us about a recent dinner that you had with him, and the way that he kind of was able to really be self-aware and communicate that with you?
Yeah, so we went to this place called Champs, and it's a sports bar, and we forgot it was March Madness, and we walked in and there was like hundreds of people. The bar was packed, and there's like 9 to 15 different televisions all playing different basketball games. And I was like, how is he managing this? Like, I couldn't believe that he was just like sitting there. We were having a conversation. It was really loud. My husband, who also is very introverted and suffers from anxiety, was just completely overwhelmed. And here this kid is just having these conversations and he basically said, like, I had to prepare myself before going out to dinner that this was what the situation was going to be, and that I was going to have to turn my brain off and not listen to all the commotion that was happening around me and just focus on having dinner with my family. And I just thought that was like, he's 22 now. And I was like, wow, that's really grown up. Like, holy crud. Like, that's really a powerful way. And then my second thought on that was, oh man, what a burden that must be to have to do that before you go into any social situation. Cause like me, I'm an extrovert and I just like walk in and I love everybody's talking and there's so much energy, and it sucks the life out of him and my husband as well in those situations. So yeah, and Ross just said he probably disassociated, and I think that's probably right. Like, he had to like just focus on what was happening right in front of him.
But Don, I think first of all, I applaud you because, and your son, you both are practicing awareness. Your awareness that of your son practicing his own self-awareness, your acceptance of him is really, really powerful. I mean, that's kind of one of the first things in all of this, in this journey, is your ability to accept your person for who they are and what they're about, type of thing. That we all get so hung up on our own kind of preconceived notions. Um, for me, it was, I had grown up reading the Hardy Boys, right? Books and like that. So I wanted that kind of a life for my family, right? And my children, they needed to be, graduate, get a great job, become professionals, have a home with a white picket fence and a big oak tree kind of stuff. Those were my hangups, right? These were the things that I was kind of foisting on them, right? And the pressures that I must have put on them to achieve, so we have 3 adult children. 2 of them are doing their own thing. Our person with PPD, the challenges that she faced, I had to radically accept that that's not what was for her, kind of stuff. If I could do that, then I could properly support her. But the pain that I must have created because I had all these things, the pressure, you got to do this, you got to do that, you got to, to achieve and all this kind of stuff. That wasn't a good, what we call a match, right?
Mm.
So I'm extroverted and sports, competition, Yankee fan, all of those kinds of things, right? That wasn't her deal. For me to accept that it was much better for her, first of all, to be alive, right? That was the thing. And then we can worry about everything else. Kind of that acceptance of her and what she was going through. That's like one of the most important steps. For me, it was. Once
Sure.
I accepted that, then everything else, could come.
Yeah, I would agree with that so much. It was so much easier to understand what he was experiencing when I just went, wow, like, that's got to be really tough to feel that way. And I don't feel that way, so I don't know.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that really just once I understood like his challenges, it became easier to be a parent because I accepted him for the way that his brain and makeup was, and could support him much better like that.
I think Jonathan can relate. He says, as an introvert, I find in intense situations, I often have to lie down when I get home afterwards. So, Jonathan, appreciate you sharing that. Jim, we talked about the class earlier, the Family Connections class that NEABPD has, that you've taught, that you attended and then taught. You've had some really great results with that class, right? Walk us through this a little bit.
Thank you. And one of the things that I would counsel anyone having to deal with a mental health issue is finding some resources. And if the resources are evidence-based, they have something that proves that it works, all the better, right? And I'm not knocking support groups or websites and things like that. They're really valuable. In this case, with the class and the programs that we offer, we have some evidence based on follow-up surveys and research that indicates that the grief, burden, stress, those are things that are you feel, and as a result of participating in one of our programs, our classes, in this case, Family Connections, there's a reduction in grief, burden, and stress. Mastery, your ability to empower yourself, increases. So to be able to find resources, to find programs that have evidence that says it really can help you. These are examples from NEABPD and our programs of how powerful it is. We know, and I refer to it as our gold standard, but we know through the evidence that it does help change lives. And then the people with BPD, when they have a family member who is emotionally invested in their progress, they feel it too. And there's improvement in their recovery type of thing. So it's a very powerful kind of an ecosystem when someone with a mental health illness like BPD can have their family members support them through education, skills, and support. A very powerful combination.
It's great. It's just really, really great to see. And you can see from the charts some significant impact, from the pre to the post, and then even tracking follow-up. I think that's actually even more impressive, that it continues. You're not getting that the bounce back. You're not going back up, sliding backward,
Right.
but that benefit is continuing even afterward. Thank you so much for walking through that, Jim. That was great.
Yeah.
That was definitely great. We, as a reminder for folks, Shining Light on Shadows airs the second and fourth Thursdays of the month. And our next show is actually going to be focusing on the Blue Flower Curtain. That's the book that Dawn wrote. That'll be episode 27 on Thursday, April 10th, timed for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. We are looking forward to that conversation. Here's a quote from a review by Tim B. on Amazon. Dawn does an amazing job sharing the personal story of her sexual assault. She does not sugarcoat the issues that plagued her following the rape and horrific experience of having to relive it at 3 separate trials. She shares how she battles mental health issues, many forms of heartbreak, and perseveres by helping other survivors. It is difficult to read at some points, but worth reading until the end. And I can attest to that. She published the book. It was September, Dawn, when
That's
it
correct.
came out.
Yep.
And I actually have it right here. And I was more than happy to encourage people to get the book, wave it, put it on screen. but it wasn't until winter break when I was had some time to sit with it. I read it in one sitting. I read for about 20 minutes. I think I went and had dinner, and then I came back and just read the rest of the book. And definitely looking forward to the conversation next month. And as I mentioned, it's Sexual Assault Awareness Month is in April. So we definitely want to talk about that. It's something that we've talked a lot about on this show. I myself was abused by a neighbor when I was 7 years old. That's how Dawn and I first got to know each other around advocacy, around sexual assault and survivors. Jim, you were always a big supporter of the work that we did at United Way Worldwide around Denim Day. So I don't, if I was smart, I would have had those pictures ready to go. But we did several pictures on the stairwell. And one of the things, Jim, that I never shared, I wasn't ready yet. When I organized those events, I was doing so as a survivor. It was, and I think one time I even thought about saying something and then I didn't. But what was always interesting is that once I did share my story, I think after leaving United Way, I felt more comfortable talking about being a survivor of sexual assault than talking about mental health issues. And this show is really an outgrowth of a show after I did with Candice Sanchez, highlighting male survivors of sexual assault. For a year, every month, we interviewed another male survivor. And at the end of that process, mental health kept coming up. And I said, well, if I can talk about sexual assault, I'm going to challenge myself to talk about mental health. And I called Dawn and asked her if she'd be my first guest. And she said, she laughed just like that and said, yes, I'll be your first guest, but can I be your co-host as well? And the rest, 2 years later, a year later, we're still running strong. But thank you, Jim, for your support in that effort as well. We do want to share some quick stats, some resources and stats with folks. Again, we've talked about the National Education Alliance for Borderline Personality Disorder. You can find them on their website, NEABPD.org, NEABPD.org. Certainly encourage you to check them out. We also shared information from NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. Their helpline is 1-800-950-6264, and their website is NAMI.org, NAMI.org. And I do want to point out that they also have several workshops and support groups for families around the country, and a lot of people have found them to be very beneficial. We had a guest on our show, Rochelle, who talked about participating in NAMI support groups and how important it was for her. So we certainly encourage you to check them out. We also want to share information from Mental Health America, and that's they run the 988 Lifeline, which is so important, particularly for people who are considering harming themselves. They offer some data points. 18% of adults have a mental health condition. Over 43 million Americans, 9.6 million experience suicidal ideation. We did a very, very powerful show with Cindy Shu in last fall. She is a New York, a local news anchor in New York City who tried to commit suicide and woke up in the hospital. She was able to get the help she needed, and then has gone on to be an incredible advocate for people. Both Dawn and I shared our own experiences with suicidal ideation on that show. So this is such an important topic. And Nicole, if you're still watching, thank you for the work that you do with 988. We really appreciate that. The last resource that we offer on this show always is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, RAINN. Every 68 seconds, an American is sexually assaulted. You can get help from rainn.org, 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 and their hotline is 1-800-656-HOPE, 1-800-656-HOPE. So appreciate you sharing, you reaching out if you need to. Jim, I'd like to just ask you, before we close out the show, if you can offer some final thoughts for people, your experience with NEABPD, the support that your family got. What would you like to leave folks with as we close?
Neil and Dawn, thank you very much for the opportunity to join you tonight. I'm always happy to share our experiences. I would encourage folks who have someone in their life with a mental health illness to seek out, learn more, find folks who you can connect with. There are tons and tons of resources out there. I will leave you with, our daughter has been so appreciative of the efforts that my wife and I and our entire family have made to support her. And it's thanks to organizations like, in our case, NEABPD.org, that has helped us to approach it in a certain way, in a meaningful way. And it's made a huge difference in our lives. It's transformed us, and it's probably saved us. And our daughter has said to us on many occasions how appreciative she is. And the last thing I would leave to you, she's quite proud of the work that I've done. And she tells her friends that, and she's very proud of that. The last thing I will say is that she now tells us that we love her in the way that she needs and wants to be loved. And that pretty much sums it up for us.
Wow. That's incredible, Jim, to get to that place. Yeah, what a journey. I remember, and thinking about it now, there was that one time when we were in the office when you mentioned that you had to leave for a family emergency. We hadn't talked explicitly about mental health or the specific issues, but I think something resonated with me. I got some inclination that there was something very seriously wrong, very significantly wrong at home, and I realized that might have been one of those days, one of those incidents. So I'm so glad that you were able to find the support that you were looking for, and that you were able to turn that into being a huge advocate for people for families, not just individuals, but families dealing with borderline personality disorder.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you so much, Jim. We really appreciate your time.
Again, Shining Light on Shadows, a candid conversation about mental health, airs the second and fourth Thursdays of the month. Our next episode will be April 10th, focusing on The Blue Flower Curtain, Dawn's book, about her experience being raped 31 years ago, if I'm doing my math right, Dawn. So hopefully you'll join us then. If you joined us late, you'll be able to watch the show from the very beginning on the same links that where you're watching now on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and my website. On Instagram, we'll upload a small clip from the show and offer a link to find the full episode. Thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in a few weeks. Take care. Bye-bye. And I'll just end it with Jonathan's quick comment, important show. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Jonathan.